I feel obligated to get moving, so that was, having said that, I'll shut up. Roll call, Jess Richardson cannot be here tonight. She's watching her daughter's volleyball game, one of the last she will be able to go to. Her daughter is a senior, and I think we all understand that. Mrs. DePritis is here, our alternate member. Mrs. Toder is here, and much of the rest of the board and administrators, et cetera, as can be noted by the people taking that attendance. Thank you all for coming. I would like a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have an approved agenda. And the minutes, and I saw one change in the minutes. In keeping with possible social trends, Ms. Richardson became Mr. Richardson.
Oh, geez. Yep.
On item 3. That's all.
Oh, you're right.
4 as well.
On 4 as well?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. Anything else to be changed? Looking for a motion to approve the minutes as modified.
Motion to approve the minutes as modified.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have minutes. Public participation, members of the public, blah, blah, blah. Nobody is here from the public, right? Anyone out there in Cyberland? No, no public. Okay, discussion and next steps. Our first item, now that we are going to buildings again, is traditionally the school report from the school hosting us. I had the pleasure of going through Torrington with Mrs. Gallulo on Friday morning. I got here in time to wait with Tracy and Kelly as the buses emptied, and just what a pleasure to see full buses and kids coming off and school being filled up again, and just a lot of fun watching them come off. And then school started, we had our announcements, and I went around class to class and saw maybe half the classrooms. We stuck our noses into a lot of the classrooms and saw the usual, what we always see in Torrington, just kids doing what they're supposed to, teachers doing what they're supposed to, and people mostly having a good time, except for those crises that do occur when you're 7 or 8 years old. Always a little tiny little fire to put out, and that, but it happened, and everyone's happy after a while. But I thought maybe I'd give Mrs. Gallulo the chance to talk about the things that are happening here.
Yeah, we're really excited about this year because all of our kids are back in the building. We had a boom in enrollment, so we're a little over 600 at the moment. We've also had a boom in incoming multilingual students. So that we, thank goodness we planned for that because it's been really helpful to have those additional resources. We started right out of the gate with our intervention team, really supporting with that assessment requirement that happened earlier than expected. And then immediately beginning a first cycle of intervention. So that got off the ground. We're getting ready for our second cycle already. So we're looking at data next week to kind of determine what the needs are and how we will make shifts and what the specific planning will be for that. Predominantly, we've really been focused on how to teach kids to be in school, because what we're seeing is a lot of our kids have just school readiness needs that we're not necessarily prepared for, didn't realize they were going to be as big as they are. Always with 4 and 5-year-olds you have that, but now compound that with 4 and 5-year-olds who may have been home with just immediate family since they were 3. So that makes it a little harder. And then the span of ages in our grade level. So kindergarten could be a 4-year-old who's turning 5 on December 31st to an almost, I think we have one who's going to be 7 in January. In February turns 7. So we planned for that. We provided classroom lists that sort of kind of divided by that. So we really have been intentional on how to make sure that we're meeting all of our students' developmental needs. And that's kind of been the focus of this first month of school. So we're really excited to keep going.
Any questions for Kelly? How many kindergartens?
173, I think we're at.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, well, we knew that was going to happen, but I don't know I'm
Yeah.
prepared to see the whole row of kindergarten classrooms and all this.
We just kept going. Well, that's another kindergarten. That's another.
Yeah.
kindergarten. And there's another one.
All those little ones.
Yeah.
All doing what they were supposed to do within the limits of
Yeah.
4 to 7-year-old kids, they're just doing what they're supposed to. Let's see, any events coming up that we need to know about?
We have a book fair at the end of the month that we're excited about. PTO is planning our fall festival that we do with our sister school at Ruette Farms. So families will be able to go in stages outdoors to Ruette and get a pumpkin and have a craft and popcorn, and that's coming up. Our Veterans Day committee has met to make a plan for something for Veterans Day. So stay tuned. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. Picture days next week.
Yeah, no, there's no chance Veterans Day will be what it was as of a couple of years ago.
So not probably indoors in an assembly. We haven't gotten to that. Even our beginning of the year assembly that we normally do, we did virtually. And we had students participate and then we shared it out in a video format. So I don't know that we could assemble everybody, but we were thinking about doing something similar to what Vogel did last year, like a reverse parade or some kind of ceremony outdoors, just because of just our own volume is 750 people on a given day. So add to that guests and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's, was always a good time here.
Yeah.
As it was in the other
Yeah.
places I went to.
Yeah, we definitely want to still do something and make sure it's a wonderful day, but we have to be creative, that's all.
Okay. Questions or comments? Pool looked good. I followed on the custodian service. He opened the door and I took the big swing around. Didn't come right down here. Just looks like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for hosting this tonight.
Thank you. You're always welcome at Torrington.
It is a welcoming school, by the way. I'm sure Kelly's not kidding when she says that. So, well, you know, Nikki. Yeah, and Kathy, you know that.
Yes, it's been a little time.
Andrew, you were here, yeah. Okay.
I was here too.
Yeah,
You were
Sue was
in
here, yeah.
I don't have any kids here this year. Very sad for me.
I went to school here in elementary school.
Oh.
Did you?
Yeah,
My high school dances were here.
were they?
Right in this room, actually.
Yeah, this was the
This is the
gym.
big gym.
Yep.
Sweet.
I got my knee stuck in the bleachers over. in
Oh,
that
gosh.
That's for a later meeting.
So the chat- the trip going on. That's good, though. That's good, that's good. Well, thank you. You're welcome to stay. You're also not need, you don't have to stay. There are other things you need to do. Unless you want to hear the middle school
I'd love to hear about the middle school.
improvement plan coming up next. Go ahead, who's up?
But before Brian jumps in, I want to keep with the historical theme. I feel like I've been the resident historian all week long. I started that on Monday. I'm going to continue it again this evening. Just to give people a frame of reference in terms of where we've been for the last 8 years at the middle school. During that time, Kathy's going to start laughing, right? We've had 9 principals in 8 years. 4 of those were interim. 1 year we had 4 principals in 1 year. So it's been a very rough roller coaster ride for the middle school. Hillary was a teacher there, then she became an AP. We have an AP team that's relatively new in terms of working together. This is Brian's 2nd year. So we're very, very happy about that. And right, his first year was COVID. So welcome to the district. Here's COVID. So it's been really, really crazy. Half of one of our years, we didn't even have a principal because we had COVID. Yeah, Sue was in and out answering questions. The APs were really good about calling us and just saying, okay, now what kind of thing. So really, in addition to COVID, the middle school has just really had a very, very rough ride during that time. So I just wanted to frame that. And then John was nice enough to send where we were at in 2019. And I know that Brian and his team will allude to the progress that we've made on some of those issues, as well as give his report on where we're at and where you hope to go. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian.
All right, please start by introducing the staff who's here with you, either in person or.
Absolutely. So good evening, everyone. As Sue just told you, I'm Brian Scott. This is my second year at Torrington Middle School. With me tonight in person is Hillary Sterling, one of our assistant principals. And then joining us online are Kelly Sousa, assistant principal. I just saw him up there a minute ago. Dr. Shannon is on there somewhere. There he is, assistant principal, and Gavin Craig, our middle school special education supervisor. So we faced, as Sue mentioned, a sort of interesting entry for myself as principal at Torrington Middle School. And we faced many challenges that in my 26 years in education, I certainly had never seen anything like. So, but this past year was a really great year, and the entire administrative team, we spent this year listening, learning, reviewing data, and getting to know our community so that we could be better prepared for moving forward. We've brought together all of that information together and creating this school improvement plan, which we believe will help deliver us to the district's vision of ensuring that every student is able to graduate with the skills and attributes that empower them to enter the college or career of their choosing. Before we get into the priority goals, we're going to go through a little bit of data. So if you take a look on the third page of the packet, you'll see our demographic and population breakdown. This is from the previous school year. The state has not released the official data for this year as of right now. I believe we're anticipating that data coming out in late October. To give you a little bit of an idea of the changes that we've faced this year, which I'm sure many of you have already heard, we had an incredibly large number of new student registrations this year. Over the course of this summer, we received 96 new student registrations. Not all of those have been completed. Parents are still in process of registering, but we will be somewhere between 1,020 and 1,050 students once we finish registering students. We don't have a demographic breakdown as of yet for those students, but we have seen a particular increase in students who require students who require TESOL ESL services. And we've also seen an increase in the number of students who have 504s or IEPs. The largest number of new student registrations appear to be from the state of New York. But we also have had a large number of registrations from the Dominican Republic, as well as other regions or other sections of Connecticut. If you go to our next page, we have some of the assessment data. I'm going to talk about the first table, which is our SBA data. As you can see, the first and most prominent thing, of course, is that there was no SBA, no assessment in the year 2020. This, of course, was a decision made at the state level due to COVID and the implications of students being out of the schools. The previous years, the data had been pretty flat, and we did see a decrease in the numbers of students who reached benchmark in the year 2021. In reviewing that data and reviewing information from our teachers and our teams, it does appear that most of the decline that we saw was a result of students being in the hybrid model for most of the school year. Students did not return to in-person instruction on a daily basis until March. Middle school students face particular difficulties with the hybrid and remote learning frameworks. They seem to lack the discipline to be able to remain engaged in learning through remote instruction. And now Kelly Sousa is going to talk about our next table, which is our STAR data.
No, we're gonna go, it's right back to that STAR data. It's still on that same page as we had previously. So if you want to go. Yep, right there. Okay, so as Brian had mentioned, we did have a very interesting year last year in terms of students not coming back fully into the building until about mid-March. And what we have here for you is the 3 assessment points that we did with our STAR assessment over the last school year. And looking at it, there is the positive that it's a flat trend line, which when looking at the type of year that we had can be viewed as a positive. The students were able to kind of hold down what they had in terms of what we were assessing in STAR throughout the school year in the 3 assessments. The fall and the winter were done when students were hybrid. So some were doing it remotely, some were doing it in school, where the spring semester was really when they came back, right when they had come back to school. So like Brian had said, with all of the changes and movements with those students, we do look at that as a positive piece. And as we're looking forward to what we've been assessing, we do still see that continued flat line of student achievement in that area.
For our next piece of data, which is not actually in your packet because we got it a little bit late to get it in here, but Dr. Shannon is going to talk a little bit about the NGSS assessments.
Hi, everyone. I have pulled up on the state website. We did achieve 41% achieving the benchmark in the grade 8 science, which was highest of the 3 grades in the district assessed. I think that's particularly a good sign, given that, science, we really want the kids to be doing active hands-on stuff, and that was really impossible in the COVID year. But I know our science department did a really good job of integrating new tools with Discovery Education and Gizmo and a variety of other things. And I think moving forward, those tools coupled with hands-on lab experiments and things like that, it's going to give kids a leg up. And so I was pleased that we did fairly well in those assessments in the 8th grade.
Turn to your next page. These are our priority goals. I'm going to go over them briefly and just give some context for the priority goals. And then our team will be going into the priority goals one at a time in much greater depth. They'll review the objectives associated with the priority goals, the rationale associated with each one, and then highlight some of the action steps that we're particularly proud of. So as I mentioned, these priority goals came from a review of our data, our year spent listening, and these are what we put together. So for priority goal 1, it will be to strengthen collaborative and effective planning for instruction that engages students in rigorous and relevant learning. With this goal, we hope to empower our teachers and raise expectations for students. We believe that holding a high bar for students and high expectations for students is the key to student engagement and student success. Priority goal number 2, strengthen instructional strategies and practices with a focus on Tier 1 instructional supports and differentiated instruction. We believe as a team that all of our students can be successful and can reach proficiency, but this will require additional support. Priority goal 3, ensure a culture of caring that supports student engagement. With this goal, we hope to develop a sense of community that will support our students and encourage them to not only attend, but engage in their school. And then priority goal number 4, engage in curriculum development and revision to enhance the district's educational program that ensures equitable access for all learners. Our goal and hope here is to provide high-quality curriculum and resources for teachers to use to engage students in problem solving and make real-world connections to what they are learning in their classrooms. Now, Hillary is going to give us a deeper look into priority goal number 1.
So for the first goal, as we mentioned before, that we're strengthening collaborative and effective planning for instruction that engages all students in rigorous and relevant learning. Our objectives here were, the first one is to increase the level of rigor and relevance in lessons as evidenced by data collected from our classroom visits. And our second objective here is to increase effective standards-based lesson planning as evidenced by the teacher evaluation process, observation of lessons, and observation of teacher collaborative planning time. Our rationale is that based on the results of the universal screener, the percentage of students performing at the proficient level in reading and math is below the target. By enhancing teachers' planning practices, teachers will deliver more intentional instruction that will lead to increased student achievement in reading and mathematics. So I'll give you just a moment to take a look through those action steps and implementation strategies, and then I'll just dive into a few that we would like to highlight. So I'm gonna kind of keep things rolling. I know that you might need a little bit more time, but I'll just highlight a few of the things. from
Just
this
so you
priority
know,
goal.
Hill, that they've had the committee's
Oh,
had
great.
the plan for weeks.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so good. So a couple of the things that we just wanted to highlight here is that with the lesson grids that we've collaborated with the teachers on the feedback for planning together in order to create those consistent and common assured learning experiences across the grade levels. So actually for us moving into COVID was fairly easy at the middle school because many of our teachers had already been doing some of those things. Yeah, I mean, it was hard in its own right, but we were able to work pretty quickly and carefully with each other to make sure that the online learning was consistent. And then we continued working on that, and we're going to continue to do that moving forward with the Office of Teaching and Learning, looking at those grids, providing more feedback, and keeping those common shared learning experiences moving. The other thing we'd like to really highlight is that we spend a lot of time taking and making an effort to provide common planning time for our teachers, that collaborative plan time, so that they can create those grids, those common assured learning experiences, work interdisciplinary and on their team levels to keep those lessons moving and providing that rigor and relevance for our students. We also, this helps with our teachers to be able to review data and assessment practices. So we're taking a look at what we're seeing the students actually perform and then making those adjustments into our learning moving forward. We're also continuing with our class visits. We did start some of that last year with our hybrid model. We're continuing to work on that as we work with our teachers. We talk to them ahead of time about what practice we're looking at, and as we go into the classrooms, we're taking data, collecting information, and then providing some feedback for our teachers. They also are able to provide us feedback, and then we're able to plan together for professional learning, which has gone really well. We feel like we're in a good place, but we need to keep working on the types of professional learning and support that the teachers need as we continue to move between these digital and hybrid in-person models. Much like Dr. Shannon was saying, you know, our science teachers are doing hands-on now, but they're also still keeping up with our digital learning.
Just a couple of
Take
things
care of that, yeah.
to weave back into some of the questions that we received. You know, it was striking, the connection and resemblance between some of the feedback that, you know, had been given in this document and some of the things that we've really targeted with this first priority goal. You know, I saw in here about more teacher coordination at grade level and subject, a focus on academics, and the concern about lowering the bar. And this district, this priority goal very much focuses on those elements. Anybody have any questions regarding our first one?
The feedback that you were just referencing, is that from your meetings with like the teachers and the classroom visits?
Yep, so what we do is we've designed a series of Google Forms. And when we go into classes, before we go into classes through classroom visits, we share what we're going to be looking for with teachers, and it has a direct tie to the district's professional learning focus. So right now we're collecting data having to do with learning targets. So we go into the rooms, we collect a little bit of data, and then we share it back with the teachers. The nice thing about it is it really adds an element of transparency because teachers know exactly what we're going to be talking about. And teachers have really spoken to how much they've appreciated this, because it really shows them the connection between what we're talking about and what's going on in their classroom.
Thank you.
And it's not evaluative, it's collaborative.
That's what it sounds like, and taking kind of the feedback.
Yep.
And, implementing that, which I think, really empowers the staff, which is great.
Yeah, it's been very powerful so far, and been some nice conversations with teachers around some of these really important parts. Questions on the first priority? Okay. Kelly Sousa is going to speak about our second priority.
I'm speaking on the third.
Oh, sorry.
I believe that's me,
Sorry,
right?
Gavin is speaking on the second one. Sorry. I have my notes wrong.
Like to keep you on your toes here.
Yes.
So, as Mr. Scott was saying before, we're looking to increase the quality of our instructional practices and focusing on differentiating at the tier 1 level. And so part of that, a measurement in that is to use the STAR assessment that was previously presented as a means to show growth in both reading and math. Part of the rationale in terms of this is, as you all know, as Ms. Klimaszewski had reported during the last meeting, that our special education numbers are really in line with the state and our DERG at this point in time. So now we can kind of make that shift and draw the connection between where our special education students are and where the general education students are, and really take a look at improving what we call our student success teams, or our SST teams, which is our differentiated levels of support for our students in general education. And then and utilizing those win blocks to be able to provide that more systematic support for those students that may need a little bit of a boost in either reading or math or any sort of other area that they are struggling. And then finally, looking at the overall kind of improvement across the board so that we're infusing more instructional strategies at the tier 1 level, at the tier 2 level, and at the tier 3 level. So in terms of some of the action steps, if you can scroll down just a little bit. So one of the things that we would like to do is make, examine and enhance the use of the WIN periods in order to provide the RTI to students that is necessary. So our response to intervention, those early intervention groups that really kind of gives a smaller environment, more targeted instruction for those areas that we have determined are lacking, and then be able to kind of accelerate their growth to be able to catch up to their general education peers within their classes. In addition to that, one of the things that we're really looking to implement going forward is drawing a connection between the students and what they're doing now in middle school to what they will have to be able to do as a productive member of the workforce. And one of the mechanisms to be able to do that is the student success plan. So our student success plans is something that the state put out back in 2012, where we're really trying to draw a connection between grades 6 through 12 and have our students be able to develop the soft skills necessary to be able to be productive members within the workforce. Some of those skills don't necessarily inherently are a part of our academic process. And so the student success plan really identifies those areas in which they're allowed to explore careers, be able to identify what soft skills are necessary, and really establish a plan for each individual student to develop those skills necessary in their area of interest and be able to start that pathway towards the high school where they'll start to select courses that are actually aligned with some of their interests. And then in terms of the other, if you just wanted to take a look through some of the other objectives at this point, if there are any questions. But those are the three kind of pillars between our win blocks, establishing SST, and having our student success plans kind of drive the process in terms of our social emotional supports, and really kind of driving it home for our students in middle school in particular, as they're still developing. Some of them don't necessarily see the point in some ways of some of the academic tasks that we ask them to do. So that student success planning and some of the advisory period that we're using to provide lessons in will all help drive that connection for them and hopefully increase student engagement overall.
Then again, referring back to some of the questions that were provided. So there again seemed to be a great resemblance between this priority goal and many of the questions that we had received. Specifically, when there was a question about the amount of RTI support. To speak to that, the year before I came, there were 2 interventionists, RTI interventionists. We currently, as of today, now have 6 interventionists. So we have 3 math interventionists and 3 reading or ELA interventionists. Those interventionists this year, unlike last year where we were faced with some of the COVID restrictions, are able to work with those really small groups and provide meaningful targeted instruction around the gaps that we're able to identify through our new data portal, which really has helped our teachers. And we've spent some time working with our teachers to be able to use that data portal to dig deep into those standardized test scores, identify where those gaps are, so the interventionists can engage the students in those gaps, which has been really powerful. Some of the other ones that we felt this really spoke to, because of the lowering of numbers of identified special education students and students that were able to exit from special education. We're no longer seeing that inequitable distribution of special education students. We keep it as level as possible. And then there was one more in here somewhere. Hold up. There was a question about RTI for non-SPED. The RTI does focus very heavily on our non-special education population students, really finding those students that have fallen behind and targeting those skills to help them get caught up. But I also don't want to shy away from some of the questions in here that we have not been able to address. And one of the ones that this indirectly pertains to are our large class sizes. As I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, we received 96 new student registrations this year, which put an incredible strain on our system. That combined with, we had some teachers who unfortunately have left. And due to the employment crisis and teacher shortage that all districts across the entire state and across the whole country are facing, we have been unable to replace some of those teachers, which has put a very high burden on some of our teachers. No one at this time is out of contractual limitations alignment, but they are at contractual limitations, which is difficult for teachers. It's hard to have 25 students in a class, especially when you have students with ESL needs, 504 and IEP requirements. So it is difficult and we are trying to address it. I wish I had better news for you on that front, but I don't want to shy away from some of the tougher things either. So that's been an area we've struggled with. So any questions with priority goal 2?
Yeah, number 6 is student-led conferences.
Yes.
Expand on that a little
Yeah,
bit?
absolutely. So we have an advisory period within our schedule, which is at the start of every day. And during the advisory period, students will be preparing a conference presentation that they will be leading with their parent in conjunction with the teachers. So the student will talk about what their goals were for the year. The student will talk about what things they've struggled with and what their successes have been, and lead their parent through the conversation rather than the parent being led through the conversation by an adult. So we're really putting the onus and the responsibility onto our students. The level to which the students do that, of course, varies based on grade level and other mitigating circumstances.
That's like a great start to getting the kids
Yeah,
out of
and
for themselves.
Kelly Sousa, who's on there somewhere, she led that last year as a pilot, and when we saw how well it went with the group she led it with, we thought that this was something we really wanted to incorporate for the entire school.
Thank you.
Other questions, number 2. Number 3, now it's Kelly Sousa's turn.
Hello, everyone. So priority goal 3, really, we're looking to reduce the number of chronically absent and disengaged students. So as we're looking at the various implementation strategies for reducing these numbers, our attendance teams are using the 3 tiers of high impact engagement strategies. These strategies provide a continuum of support or outreach for our families. The continuum provides low, moderate, and higher impact strategies for student successes. One of the higher impact strategies that we began to use this year is the LEAP program. Over the summer, the district was selected to receive a statewide LEAP grant. The LEAP program allows the district to train teachers to go out and engage with both families and students. The goal of the program is to help bring resources to families and students struggling with absenteeism and disengagement during the 2021, 2021, that's a lot of 20s, school year due to the pandemic last year. Currently at the middle school, we have 15 teachers that are part of the LEAP program, ranging in specialties from regular education teachers, special education teachers, as well as in the related services. To date, we have conducted 3 successful home visits, along with over 30 phone calls, reaching out to families. The responses from families has been positive, and they're very excited to see the district connecting with them on a different level. Another strategy that we have identified that Brian spoke to a little bit is our advisory system. This year, the students start off their day in advisory classes. These classes range from between 15 and 20 students. That was our goal, is to keep them small. All of our certified staff members do have advisory classes so that we are able to try to maintain those smaller size classes. Again, with the influx of additional students, the range has shifted a little bit. In these advisory lessons, we are going to be working, as Brian spoke to a little bit, with some student-led conferences. I did help one of my teams last year. It was a 7th grade team, piloted this program, and they had found some really great successes. Students were excited to present their own growth to parents, presented their grades, goals that they had for the remainder of the year as well. So we're going to be implementing those student-led conference templates during advisory, where students will be able to work in with their advisory teacher and develop these. They're like a portfolio, if you will, and present them to their parents. Teachers also work during this advisory time to develop close relationships with their students, help setting goals and intentions for the day, and also to support them with any academic needs. So those are some of the highlights for our priority goal 3. Are there any questions that I can help answer or clarify?
Just to tie it into the questions that you guys provided, there was a question about a home to school liaison component, which Kelly just spoke to with the LEAP program, which has been really impactful. Our social worker, Jamie Muscola, has been spearheading that effort. She's put together a great team. They all participated in the training that the Office of Teaching and Learning provided, and it's been really impactful. We've seen a lot of those students and families re-engage with the school, which has been great.
Can I just add one thing?
Yep.
I just wanted to add, just for the board's information, that while the actual home visit, which the ideal is for it to occur in the family home, however, by definition, a phone call home visit also qualifies as such, because some families are just not comfortable with that. So, you know, Kelly said 3 successful home visits. I'm assuming you mean where they actually went to the home, but there were 30 phone home visits. So I think a lot more work is being done. I just wanted to point that out.
And though not directly connected to this, but I think certainly tangentially connected. There were a lot of questions in the packet provided to us around student discipline issues. We have tried to take a very direct and systematic approach. We have tried to clearly establish for students what the expectations at Torrington Middle School are for students. We have also incorporated and brought in our parent community. For those of you who received my emails, we have really made an effort to work with our families to address issues, both on the discipline front as well as things like absenteeism and engagement in classes. And I can say that it has been really a remarkable success. You know, not to drift too far off of our priority goals here, but recently we had to send out some communication regarding some TikTok challenges that were going on. And I'm happy to share that we have had 0 incidents related to the TikTok challenges since we communicated with the parents. We asked the parents to speak with their students seriously about these issues and about the seriousness and what the consequences can be for some of these actions. And clearly that message came through, and our parents spoke loudly to their students, and it was great to see that response from our community. Any other questions for priority goal 3? All right, and then we'll move on to our final priority goal number 4, and Dr. Shannon will discuss this.
Hi, everyone. Priority goal 4 is engaging curriculum development and revision to enhance the district's core educational program that ensures equitable access for all learners. The objective here is to produce revised curriculum documents for courses in English, math, science, social studies, and world language departments. Our rationale was based on data around student performance. We determined that Tier 1 curriculum needs to be significantly augmented in order to enhance student outcomes. The curriculum development and revision process is a cyclical system to continuously improve the quality and effectiveness of curriculum. To that end, Kathy Sosnowski, our former colleague and now consultant, is working with all of those departments. I know she's already begun, I believe, with English, math, and social studies, and will be shortly with the other departments to, audit and then, revise and update their curriculum. We did implement a study skills course at the 6th grade level in the first trimester, based on some of the work we did at the high school with their study skills course. We've determined, having worked at the high school for a number of years, it's pretty clear that you can identify kids that come in or they're going to struggle and that they don't have certain skills. So that's what we tried to base that curriculum on. And so all 6th graders have that coming in their first trimester, where they can try to learn some assessment skills and note taking and engagement and different types of skills that are related to doing well in school in general. We piloted over the summer a personal interest project with Ed Advance, and we're using that in some of our WIN classes. Basically, the idea is it's a project-based learning type program where kids are really identifying things that they have a fundamental interest in and then tying it to the subject at hand, whether it be science or social studies or whatever. And, I think the idea there really is to get kids to make meaningful connections between things they're inherently interested in and their classes that they're taking every day. So I think that's going to be a big step in terms of making those connections and then moving towards, career pathways at the high school. So we're all excited about that. And that's all I have, unless you have questions for me or Brian or the others.
Just another couple of quick items on this one. Dr. Shannon brought up the PIP project, personal interest project, which has been a really nice success. The goal when we worked or partnered with Ed Advance on this was to give students an opportunity to practice and improve important skills through investigating an inquiry into something that was of an interest to them. In the summer school, it went really well in terms of kids re-engaging, which was important because we had a lot of students that needed to do that. And then our teachers partnered with Ed Advance to refine that program, to more closely connect it to the standards, to give it some accountability and some measurable outcomes within the project. So that's been a really nice addition. And then some other new things that have been introduced this year. We have begun the process of building a much more in-depth world language curriculum. We have 2 very exciting new world language teachers this year, and they're working with all grade levels, whereas in years past that was not true. And they'll be engaging in developing an intermediate course, because right now we have an exploratory course for both Italian and Spanish. And then we have a year-long course for both Italian and Spanish. And what they're going to be working is to develop an intermediary course to go in between those two, so that if a student takes Italian or Spanish in 6th grade and finds that it's something they really enjoy, there'll be an opportunity for them to engage again in that language in 7th grade, rather than having to wait till 8th grade to take the language again, which has been really nice. They're a wonderful addition to our staff this year. So any questions with priority goal number 4?
Since Brian has answered many of those questions or the topics that John so nicely shared, we'll just pass this out to you so that you do have a reference, but we wanted Brian and his team to be able to answer those questions organically, rather than you trying to reference this and also look at everything that he was sharing. So I'll pass those around.
Okay, Brian,
Yep.
Hillary, thank you for coming, and everyone else who's on.
Thank you
Now,
very much.
I'd like to open it for some general questions about, not necessarily specific to the items, we've done that already, but general about middle school improvement as a topic. I'm going to start. These questions came as a result of things brought up by teachers. Teachers, what it came down to, I think I could generalize by saying, teachers felt that they weren't really given the say that they should when we went around. This is a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, pre-Brian. This was a long time ago. But I guess my question is, and we made at least one personnel change that was designed to improve that, and also to reduce the degree of permissiveness that we perceive and that teachers perceive in that school, and to change the culture, not just change a person, but to change the culture of the school. So I'd be interested in hearing any response you might have, and Hillary could probably answer this better because she's been there, and maybe Kelly too, through the thing. Is the culture still the same, or how much change has there been? And what have the changes been? And to what degree can you say that teachers are more involved and more respected?
I think one of the, and I'll let Hillary answer that. I think one of the really powerful things that we've seen in terms of that change of culture actually has come in the relationship with, and also I would say the statements that have come from our teacher union representation. I meet with the teachers union representatives on a monthly basis, and we engage in a collaborative approach to doing things, rather than a top-down approach to doing things. And one of the things that we have started doing have been lesson planning grids. Now, the lesson planning grids, the way that we've used them at Torrington Middle School is it's a way for teachers to collaborate about what's going on in their classes. So the 6th grade English teachers or the 8th grade math teachers have a lesson planning grid. It gives them an opportunity to talk about where they are, what's up next in the curriculum, what resources they're going to use. And our teacher union representatives actually went and spoke at the Office of Teaching and Learning about the strength of that document and the way that they've used it. And we were able to use the middle school's approach to that as a model for some of the other schools as well, which has been really powerful.
For all the other schools.
Yeah. So that's been great. And I think also, to speak to one of those concerns, John, I think what we've really emphasized to our teachers is that while we do anticipate that people will move through the curriculum and the scope and sequence in a relative proximity to each other, that each teacher needs to practice their skill and play to their strengths. We would never expect people to conduct the exact same lesson the exact same way, because that's not going to be powerful for those teachers, and it's not going to be engaging to our students. So we've really given a lot of freedom to our teachers and really given them far more opportunities to collaborate in a meaningful way. And I think that's really started the change in the culture in the building. And I'll speak.
Yeah, I would echo that same thing. I think really planning for that collaborative time has afforded the teachers to feel comfortable to plan. And then we as admin and the other support staff go into those meetings to talk with, and it's that growth mindset that we're all working on growing. It's not that I got you type of feeling that we sort of had before. It's really thinking about, okay, here's what our practice is, as I mentioned before with the class visits. Beforehand, we would have maybe had enough work. But when we were ready to go in last year, I mean, it just became commonplace, and it's commonplace this year. Teachers are like, yes, come in, give me the feedback, because I think that level of trust that we're looking to help improve practice is there. We do, I mean, at our PDEC meeting, our union reps from the teachers side very much, said that the lesson planning has been hopeful. And they come to the administration in a way of being able to work together versus all of a sudden we've got some sort of issue that has come to the table that we didn't know about. It's generally brought up. We really talk through and work through those issues together. Because it is middle school and we all have to be together. We've got 10 through 15-year-olds.
What was the thinking behind not having teachers on the planning team for the school improvement?
So the school improvement planning team did meet in the summer. We did get feedback from the teachers, but teachers were very strained at the end of last year.
Were they given the chance to volunteer for this?
To volunteer to review and give us
No,
feedback.
no,
yes.
were they
Yep.
given the opportunity to volunteer for the school improvement planning?
No, we did it in the summer and
Okay, that's
yeah,
why
they
I
were
asked.
burnt out. Yep.
A lot of for instance, you talked about systemic things within the school about improving discipline. If a teacher brings a disciplinary issue to administration, can that teacher count on being supported by the administration?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's a strong word.
Yep.
Okay, I'll take that. And another question about involving teachers too. The grading committee that was mentioned here. Now, we went through that earlier, as last year. Teachers involved in that now?
Yes. All of our teachers have participated in our conversations around the grading and around some of the learning that we've done around grading. So we have incorporated everyone into those
Okay,
conversations.
but there's a committee that's mentioned. Are there teachers on that committee?
Yes.
Yes.
There are teachers middle school teachers
Yep.
on that.
Yes.
committee. Okay, that's good. Okay, I'm done. Anyone else?
Had a comment.
Yep.
I appreciate how you guys delivered this, like with, here's the goal,
Yeah.
here's why it's the goal,
Mhm.
and here's what we're doing. Not what we want to do, but
Mhm.
here's what's actually in place. And I'm super impressed and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So thank you for all the time.
So a couple of things. One, the first time the administration saw this list was 11:02 this morning. So the fact that you guys have a response to every item on this list, I'm
Yeah.
impressed with. But, so I think the plan is great. My bigger concern is, I think middle school is becoming the toughest area, K through 12. I think that kids are showing extreme behaviors much earlier. Things that we see in high school, we're seeing in middle school. So I guess not for tonight, but I'm looking as we're preparing our budget, what things may we consider to help kind of support getting in front of some of these discipline issues, because we can't get to a place where it's taking up all of the administration's time.
Yeah.
And, maybe like looking outside of the box for things that we could maybe support budgetarily to kind of get in front of the.
Yeah, and we appreciate that support, and we've had some of that support already. We've increased the number of behavior technicians that work with students who are demonstrating behaviors that are inappropriate for school. We've also increased the number of security paras that work in that capacity. This year and last year, we increased that number as well. And one of the interesting things as we reviewed the behavior data, the disciplinary data, is that, for example, this year here, all of our out of school suspensions represent 1.6% of our students. So it's a very small number, and all of our suspensions combined in school and out of school, it's 5.5% of our students that have received all of those. So it's more about trying to work with a very small group of students to help them make better decisions. Because 95% of our students are doing the right thing, and they're demonstrating good behaviors, and they're making good choices. But we do have that, 5-6% of students that unfortunately are not making good decisions. And we've tried to really work with those students. So we're trying to take an approach of both consequences, because we think it's important for students to understand there are consequences for their actions, but also a lot of restorative and educational work to help them make a better choice next time.
So if I may jump in for just a second, Fiona, I think you
Yeah.
hit the nail on the head in a lot of ways, where our students range anywhere from the age of 10 to almost 16. We've got a wide range and developmentally in terms of, they're going through puberty. Their brains are developing to the point where, they're almost functioning like us in the back of their brains at the age 14 or 15, but the front of their brain, the thing that controls their impulses, the pieces that actually have, that we're demanding of them to develop in terms of their, emotional and instructional control are still in process. And so there's a lot involved to actually still have as adult leading, but trying to get them to grow and have that independence over time. So it's certainly something that we're going to have to continue to look at and improve upon and work on. One of the things that I did want to mention as well is that we do have an additional social worker this year at the middle school as well. And so that's really been a help to be able to provide all of that kind of support for those students that, for our 7th graders, last time they were in school for real was in 4th grade. And we're seeing some of that kind of disconnect and level of behavior now that we're back in full time. So we'll continue to have to work on that.
We also have a partnership with Community Health and Wellness, who has a clinician at the middle school several times during the week to help.
So I think just the other part, I think we see a lot of what we'll call repeat offenders, right? And, I just wonder at what point, if it continues, it's such a small percentage, but it's disruptive to all of the other kids. And, in the past, we have had different kinds of alternative programs for some of the repeat.
And we do have the 8th grade alternative program this year,
Right.
which has a very small number of students in it, which allows for that very intensive, not quite one-on-one, but very close to one-on-one education and also monitoring. So we are taking those approaches, and again, it's really about trying to get those small group of students to make better choices, because we want them to be able to go on to high school and be successful and have successful lives. We just need to help them make those good choices.
I guess so I would be interested just in the future to know how that program worked out, and should that be something we consider expanding?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to really get in front of some of these things. So
Yeah,
that
we're monitoring it closely. The social worker that Gavin brought up works very closely with that group of students, and she's done a remarkable job so far this year. So we're very hopeful, but we'll see. Hopefully it will work well.
Yeah, because I think some of those programs, they help those kids that are involved in them, but then there's also a positive impact to the regular classrooms as well. So all the kids end up getting their needs met. Okay, thank you.
Just to relate this discussion of discipline with a previous discussion from the policy committee, we just approved the reinstitution of the forms that we use for bullying and so on. Those forms are in use and are
Yes.
working
Yes.
for you. They're working. Okay, so there's no reason to modify any of that. Okay, anyone else? Questions? Any other?
Just
General?
one more, and then I'm probably not ask any more. So, because there's always discussion wrapped around the cell phones.
Yep.
So the current policy is the middle school kids are supposed to have them in their locker. Is that
So we're not able to use the lockers right now.
right because of
So the
COVID?
students are to keep them in their backpack
Right.
and away from them. We do deal with this problem on a very regular basis.
Mhm.
It is probably, in terms of the lower level discipline things, probably our number one thing that we deal with are students taking out their cell phone, students having their cell phone, the AirPods. Those are probably what we deal in terms of, low level stuff. That's probably the most frequent thing that we deal with.
So do you think the policy that we currently have meets the needs for the middle school, or do you think a more stringent policy? I'm not putting on the spot, but just to think about.
The difficult part comes in the relationship and the working with the parents. That's where, the stick sticking point really comes in terms of the policy and enforcement around cell phone. We have a lot of parents that want their students to have their cell phone on them and want to be able to communicate with their student via the cell phone. So
Brian, can you just talk about what happens? So the student has their cell phone out. Can you just walk through?
Yep, sure. So if
incidents,
it's something
like
that's minor in a
incidents?
classroom, the teacher addresses it because it is, in the student handbook that the students are not supposed to have a cell phone out or a cell phone in a visible way. It gets addressed at that point by the teacher. If it's something that happens repeated, then it gets addressed by one of the assistant principals. The cell phone is taken from the student and held in the office. If it's something that happens a second time, it's held and the parent has to come pick up the cell phone. We don't allow the student to take the cell phone home with them. And if it's something that becomes a recurring issue with the student, we do have the parent engage in what we call a cell phone contract, which states that the student is either required to turn their cell phone into the front office when they arrive at school or have no cell phone on their backpack or anywhere else on school property. Luckily, we've only had to do cell phone contracts with a very, very small number of students. I could only think of actually one last year that we actually did a cell phone contract with the parent. So it has rarely rises to that level. It's usually once the parent has to come pick it up, that's usually where it kind of ends.
Thank you.
Anything else? I know I would speak for Ronnie Gelormino, who can't be here because she's in rehearsal. She's
Your play soon.
biggest fan, she's biggest support, of the school, the middle school, biggest cheerleader for the middle school. And I got an email from her today that basically just reiterated all the good things she always says and wants to make sure that we know there are very good things happening at the middle school. That's it. Well, thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Everybody out there in Cyberland, and you feel free to sign off or feel free to stay. We have a couple items to go. Meeting is yet to continue, so. Okay. Next agenda item.
No.
Meeting minutes components. You're the one who brought this up as a topic, so why don't you explain what you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think more often we're getting documents in the meetings that are not included in the packets, right? Which I get because hot off the press information. And so my request in kind of talking about this was, could we include those handouts that happen or occur in the meetings as part of the meeting minutes? And the request really is that if you miss a meeting and something was handed out, you never have it. You can't
Oh,
go
I
back.
see. Okay, so like this, for example. you would
Correct,
want it
right,
To
so-
be in the minutes for next time.
Yeah, because it's not part of our packet. And then this way we have access to go back and be like, oh, remember we went through this. I want to look up something. Because right now it's kind of, you don't have access to any, anything that's a handout in the meeting.
Not really a school improvement issue, but it was assigned to us because it doesn't really fit anyplace else.
Right.
It's as good
And I
as
don't think
any
it
place
should be a
else.
big issue. It's just more of, this way, everybody has access to the information, whether it's handed out, whether you're attending or not attending, and you can go back in.
Okay, any,
So I'm almost wondering, would it be easier if, because everything else is on the agenda, if they went and amended it to the agenda, any additional handouts?
Yeah, that's an
I don't know
we
the
emailed
answer,
it back
but-
out. Yeah.
Sorry.
But then they'd have, right. you wouldn't
Well, because
have
it's on the
that.
website, is what I'm thinking.
Oh, on the website.
Yeah.
Maybe what you're talking about is when it's draft form and it goes to the full board to approve the meeting, that at the end of every draft, it's handouts, and then the handouts are included. So that you're approving the minutes and the handouts,
or accepting the.
or
Yeah.
accepting,
That's
right,
exactly what I was
accepting the
saying.
minutes with the handouts.
That's exactly.
So it would go all together. So it would
All
be
together, so at
presented.
the end, after it says future meetings and whatever, right there would be like handouts.
And then this would be included.
So, yeah,
So the
whatever
only-
handouts would be
And presumably
included.
the minutes would include
The minute would
reference
include
to
any,
those
right,
handouts,
any
so they made
handouts, so that when
sense.
it's posted on the website, after it's been accepted, the handouts would be written with it.
So the only problem with that is storage, because then we'll have it attached, all the handouts attached to all the agendas and all the handouts attached to all the minutes.
They're not on the agenda.
They're not on the
though.
agenda
No,
and
they're
not,
not
no,
on the
just
agenda.
these items. But
Like
I-
this.
No, but I thought Ellen's saying everything, all the handouts, which would include the stuff that came in the agenda, would be attached to the minutes?
No, just the
Just the
ones that were
additional
handed
ones.
out
Okay,
so additional handouts
Yeah.
maybe. Just
That come
anything that
during
was
the meeting that
introduced
aren't
that
on
wasn't
the
in the
agenda.
packet.
Like this wasn't in the packet, they put this together.
So that would be like handout number, or additional handout number 1.
And you're talking about the minutes being appended to the minutes rather than. the
Correct,
agenda,
just to
yeah.
be, right, added on to the minutes when they're received
By the full board.
by the
By the
full
full
board.
board.
So it would be after this meeting. So the next full board meeting would have the minutes plus any additional handouts.
Professional staff input, any reason not to do
Is
that? Any
that-
problem?
Is that difficult to do?
We can make sure that we send it to Marissa, because usually we do anyway. Actually, oftentimes Ally ends up sending it to Marissa before we even finish, so.
But it's just, then, but it doesn't get to the full board
So,
Right.
yeah, that's,
posted. So if anyone wants to go back and look at it, like next month, if you want to go
Mhm.
back and look at it, there's no handout.
but that's my question is about the timing of it, because the minutes from tonight's meeting will not go to the full board this month, right? They go the following month because they come back to SIC to be approved first.
Right.
So I guess that's my question. Do you want the handouts to come, to be attached to the minutes that come back to school improvement the following month? Otherwise, we're waiting.
We're always
I think
behind.
that's, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
personally, I
They'd
don't
be
have a
available in
preference.
draft form.
Yeah, I have no
Yeah.
preference to where they are.
Right?
Yeah, they'd still be available.
Is there any reason though why
No, I
you wouldn't
understand.
want them
I'm just
just
trying to
appended to the
when.
agenda? Because you'd have to know then what was handed out at a meeting versus what was in the packet on where you were gonna look for the items.
I
Either
mean,
way, whatever's easier,
Yeah, whatever's easier.
whatever's easier for
Yeah,
you.
that's what we're trying to clarify. 'cause
Right.
It is.
Well, I
confusing.
don't think it matters if
It's
it's
just
in
you
there
can
would
read
be
through the
no
minutes.
approval.
Ally wants to say.
Usually you read through the minutes of
Go
what
ahead.
happened at the meeting and then look for the.
I think having it in the agenda would also create a whole bunch of back and forth, what's what version. I have a better way, which will be much easier for all of us,
Okay.
and you will love it. I would present it to you at the next public meeting.
Okay,
Done.
sounds good,
What do
thank
you
you.
think, Ally?
I have a better way, I just need to flush it out in my head, but
Okay.
I'll present it at the next meeting.
She already knows it's so you're gonna love
We were told we were going to-
Yeah, we're gonna love that.
I think
Marissa will get a
our
vote
own
on that,
opinion,
right?
We'll love it.
So.
That was East Germany you grew up in, Ally? East
I'm
Germany?
sorry?
That was East Germany you grew up in? Oh, we can look- Okay, so we can wait until Ally comes up with.
Oh, yeah. that's
Sure.
fine.
Okay, what about it?
As long as it's there. you know?
Yeah,
Right.
no, I think it's a great idea. Yeah, we just
Wherever
need a
it's
system.
there.
Right.
So we will put it on the agenda of the next meeting of this committee to hear the proposal and, okay. thank
Actually,
you.
I just have to say, that will help us too. Because, no, seriously, because sometimes when I'm going back to look, I've got to be scrambling through
Right.
files, right? So,
I
yeah.
have a stack, and I've only been on the board for a year that hasn't been electronic. I have a stack like this already, so it's hard to
Mhm. Keep it all
throw
together.
something out. Yeah, so this will be easier. Thank you.
We'll be looking forward to this. Yes.
I have one comment. The goal of that will be to have them in real time. So that if there is.
Now you're
an-
pushing it.
It's a collaboration tool, and within it, let's say there is another, let's say you've never presented, they walk in with a handout. At the end of the meeting, that handout will be available online in a collaborative space.
That's amazing.
That's good. Yeah,
Perfect.
that'd be great.
Looking forward to seeing this
Thank
in the
you.
flesh next month. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The only other
Okay.
just added comment just on that is if we try as much as we can to get the stuff in the packets the week before, then we would have less of this, so.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
right.
The trooper.
Building committee structure and membership. Fiona, I think you'd have something, you said you'd have something to say about this. Although we
Yeah.
covered it at the last meeting, didn't we, on Monday?
Mhm.
The topic, the building committee, the constitution of the building committee.
Yeah, Amy Samuelson shared that.
The agenda item. Nikki, I think that was something you wanted to.
It was.
Question, and in response to a question that you asked.
Yeah, it was in response to a question. I don't know that what I was thinking in terms of like, who's the building committee? What's the BOE's role? Like, I'm just trying to figure that out because I feel like it's unclear to me.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Me too. Clarification. Now that you say that, as far as what the BOE's role is.
Right, because I know
And the
city
building
council
committee.
appointed the BOE as the building committee. And then we appointed another committee, which I'm not looking to change that committee. I'm just looking to understand statutorily who's the building committee. And does that change, you know, people, the board members who are not on the building committee, their role?
So a couple of things. So one of the inquiries, sorry, and I'm just trying to read what they sent me. So we can get a legal opinion from Shipman. We'll have to pay for that legal opinion. So we can decide as a board if we want to do that. I did talk to the attorney at the state, and what they told me is, the short answer is that the state statute does not address who gets to establish these committees. It's up to the town. Some give school boards the ability to form the committee, others don't. It's unprecedented that a city would appoint a board of education as the building committee. There was some possibilities of changing to the law, but that was only relative to New Britain. It had nothing to do with any other schools. It was a specific change to New Britain. So he said it's actually not as difficult as we're making it, because the Board of Ed is responsible for programs. The building committee is responsible for the building. So any program changes would come through Board of Ed, and then the building committee would work to develop the spaces for those programs.
And can you just define a program? Like, is that like automotive? Is that what you're defining as a program?
Yes.
So I think where the confusion lies is when there's reference made there, and maybe it's city council, I don't know where, but the building committee and the Board of Ed is being used synonymously. But from what I understand from what you just read, building committee is the building committee, Board of Ed is the Board of Ed. Like, we're not,
Right, so the city
we're not
council,
building committee,
you're not.
right?
There's 6 people on the bill, 6 members of
But
the
it's,
Board
I
of
think
Ed.
they're used, you know, people say building committee and it's assumed that that's the Board of Ed, but it's not,
But I think,
right?
I mean, the city council has approved all of this every step of the way, knowing who's on the building committee. There's never been a question of who's on the building committee.
So it doesn't matter that it's not, I guess there's not a question, no, there's not a question as to who's on it, but I think it's assumed that everyone is part of
Everyone
it.
could be if the other board members came to building committee. It's kind of like, we
I don't
really,
think we're saying we want to be.
no, but
That's
we
all
really
I'm saying.
wanted, we really.
right, that's what I'm trying to understand. Yeah.
We felt it very important at the beginning that 2 members of city council and 2 members of Board of Finance should be on the building committee. We felt very strongly about that.
Yeah,
And it didn't work out that way.
so they're not.
We were told they couldn't.
We were told they couldn't be.
Oh,
So, but if any of them show up, we offer them a seat at the table, which would be the same if any other Board of Education members came. They would also be offered a seat at the table as elected officials.
oh, okay, gotcha.
Ed also provides Board of Finance, the mayor and city council with all of the minutes as well.
I don't
Yeah,
I don't want to say, I don't care what the mayor's getting or what, that's not the point. It's more just understanding what my role is as a Board of Ed member with the building committee.
Who was like appointed the building committee through city council. And then that's why like I had asked, like, I didn't know if we had created a subcommittee, like I was getting confused
It's
and
just
kind of reading
confusing,
some of the
right.
state statute. It really, I think is clear that it's like the legislative body in town that has to appoint or reestablish a building committee. So I just want to make sure, you know, that I'm clear of what my role is. right? Because if city council appointed it, I just wanted to,
So we
like, I'm
don't
just looking
have
for
to attend
clarification.
building committee meetings. There's no obligation as a Board of Ed member to participate in any of that.
Even though we're like officially the building committee,
You're not though.
not through city council.
No, city council approved who's on the building committee. And they have approved every step of the way.
Okay, so they've reestablished the building
So-
committee is what you're saying, to be like the current members.
Well, they approved our membership of our building
Okay.
committee at a meeting. So they're in approval with who we have on the building committee.
Then that means they reestablished it, and that was my question. Because I know we don't, well, from what I read again, doesn't appear that we have the right, the Board of Ed has the right to appoint members or reestablish, so as long as they did it, then.
Well, we
kind of-
submitted the list of the building committee and then they approved
They just
it.
approve
Right,
it.
yeah.
And then
And,
it's-
and, you know, so
Yeah.
there's, if they
And
had
that-
any issue with that, they would have declined it at that time.
I didn't know
18
they
months
approved
ago.
it. I
And that
tried
was at
going
the
through
very
it.
beginning.
Very beginning.
The
of the
very
process.
beginning,
Pre-referendum.
right, right.
So Kath, when you had your Torrington building committee, you had community
It was a
members.
totally different,
Right.
totally different thing. The city council, well, I don't know if it was the city council, but whomever appointed the building committee.
The city
And they were-
normally appoints the building.
The city council, was it city council or who would have appointed Torrington's building committee? I think there were 2 Board of Ed members, several community members. I was on it as the principal of the building. But I mean, it was a totally different configuration. I don't remember the superintendent as this,
Well, we're not really on it.
Right, we're
Well, right.
We
ex
just come.
Yeah.
right, right.
Right.
But I mean, that,
And that's the difficulty with this is there is, so the a couple of attorneys at the state I talked to said there is no past practice because this has never been done in Connecticut
Right.
before the way you guys.
and the city
Oh.
actually, the current, I'm trying to think, they even sent the secretary to take the minutes.
Yep.
Carol Anderson, who is now our city clerk. I'm not sure what her position was at that point, but she came and did all of the minutes. All of that was done, by her and submitted to the building committee, but then copies of that also went out then to all of the Board of Ed members,
Which they do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
get the minutes.
which is, it was
So
just a
what's the
total.
status of this list? What does this list mean? This list that was sent out.
Where's that?
I just sent that to the committee members, to the school improvement committee members, because I didn't really know
Okay.
the context of this agenda item. So that's just a list of the people who are the current building committee members who were the original folks approved, and then the others.
Was that in an
Basic-
email, Sue?
Basically, yes. Basically, that is the distribution list that Ed Aram uses. Everybody on that
Okay.
list receives the minutes.
So there's a building committee of 9 people. The rest of the school board is listed underneath that, and then all the visiting firemen are underneath that.
Yep.
Okay.
I can't see that, but I'm assuming it's the list.
Yeah, I didn't get that list.
But any board member
Oh, here it is.
not listed can attend.
But I put,
Yeah, of
I
course.
put the other board members on
Yeah.
the list because every board member is receiving Ed Aram's communications, whether they attend or not.
And
right?
then
So
also
shouldn't your
approves the
building-
minutes afterward anyway, because then they are presented at a full board meeting as well.
You're a building committee member, right?
I think they just broke it out to show who's on the Board of Education.
Right.
Right, but if you look at this, it looks like
Yeah, because
We're
I
all
think I'm
on
on the
the
building
building
committee,
committee.
but it's listed differently on the distribution.
So the top, the very
This,
list of the top,
Sue just put this together based on
The
who's on
list-
Ed Aram's distribution list.
correct.
That's not the real.
And there,
building.
but there-
Oh, it's, okay.
She's just showing who gets all the stuff
Got it.
on building
I
committee,
have that.
but that's not the actual building committee because one person has resigned.
Who?
He might be off the list already.
I was just relying on what
Yeah,
I got
he's
from
gone,
Ed, so it might not be like,
You did,
And
thank
I
you for
think-
doing
Oh, no,
that.
it's fine. Yeah, it just, when I
You have
looked
to
at that,
broken
it
down
made
by
it look
category,
like,
Not by committee.
the building committee. It's so confusing to me. Building committee members, Kathy's on there, Gary, Armin. But then you go
Those
to
are non-elected people. So how, if she
That's
separated
not,
on here?
Kathy, these are board members.
right, but you'll see Pat Finn and you'll see Casey
Right, but then you
McKenna,
go to board members and it lists
the
the
other,
rest of the board.
correct.
but then it just got confusing.
Disregard.
Like just a list of the actual building committee members would be helpful, just to show like,
I think that's the top
That's it, the
portion of the
top.
page.
but aren't you a
Plus-
building committee member?
Plus
Well,
Ellen,
plus
John, and
me,
me.
John.
are
Oh,
building
okay.
committee.
That's board
Sorry.
leadership, right?
Right, they're not on there. That's where it gets
Okay.
confusing.
No.
Okay, so they should be.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
can resend it to you, that's fine.
No, you don't even have to resend it. Just knowing that clarification helps. Very
And
helpful.
could you just send, where city council approved, like the list, only because I went through all the minutes and I only saw them approve the Board of Ed. So I just wanna, if you don't mind sending that to me, I tried to find it, but.
I guess what is the point of all this? Because one, they approved the building committee. They've been conducting meetings with the chairs of the building committee. Many of them that no member of the Board of Ed has even been invited to. So I guess I'm not under, are you saying that it's not, like, I don't know where the,
No, I'm just asking because, you know, we've been giving kind of the school building committee their roles and responsibilities, like, it's very clear on kind of what that committee's roles are, and I just am trying to get clarification, not to create an uproar, but more of like, who's the official building committee? Because if that is in fact the Torrington Board of Ed, we either need to
well, the Board of
reestablish
Ed
it.
also voted on the members of the
Agreed,
committee.
assuming it was within, it was legal for us to do that, or within the law. That's like all I'm trying to clarify, because if not, then I think the Board of Ed
Well, I
members that are
think you
not
should
on that.
ask, I think you should ask that question actually to the city council. Because they're the ones that didn't follow the charter by not having the city appoint the building committee. So that's where the rub is. The rub is that this is not normally what is done, because typically the city creates a building committee.
But didn't they when they created, didn't they when they appointed us the building committee?
No, because if
Okay.
you look at, let me just pull up first my phone. Oh, no, hold on. If you look up the one statute that you're referencing,
Yeah.
one of them, that one charter says you have to have a very experienced construction
Yep,
person.
right. Which luckily enough is probably Carrie,
But
right?
it's not based on
Oh.
statutorily. It's, so that's why we have the two attorneys on the
Yeah.
board, on the building committee. We don't have any attorneys on the board of ed.
Yeah,
So it's statistically impossible for us to formate what's required on the building
Okay.
committee from the Board of
From
Education.
among ourselves.
I just know, isn't it the
Right.
board, it's the building committee that goes and submits the grant officially, right, when we get to that point? So I just wanted to make sure we're all in compliance. But it
I mean,
sounds like
nothing is
it's on the
done.
city
So
council.
ultimately, because
Yeah.
the way it is, everything is additional steps because of the structure. So
Right.
the building committee does something, like approves the contract, say. Then the building committee has to bring it to the Board of Ed. And then the Board of Ed looks at the contract.
So there-
And then we take that from the Board of Ed and then we bring it to the city council and then city council approves the contract. So everything that's happened, every step of the way has went through three processes.
So they're kind of
So-
acting as like a subcommittee in theory, because they're bringing everything through the Board of Ed, or would that typically happen?
I mean, anything financial or policy related is coming from building committee to Board of Ed, but I believe that would happen anyways. Even if it was a regular
Okay.
building committee, I think they still couldn't make budgetary decisions without coming through the Board of Ed. But this is unprecedented. I mean,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
literally reached out to every building committee and everyone says you're doing what? Like, it's just, this isn't a normal process.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it is, with the exception of Kathy, none of us have ever been on a building committee before. So that's also complicated because you have to have some base knowledge of how this works, somebody experienced. So Kathy's experienced, but she's the only one.
Yeah.
But Ed and Mario, I think.
Oh, yeah.
No, but I'm saying if it was
Right.
just the Board of
Oh, if it was
Ed,
just the board, right,
it should-
right.
I'm not, I just want to make sure it's very clear. I'm not advocating for it to be the Board of Ed at
No.
all. I am not advocating for that. I'm not advocating to be appointed to it. I'm not in any way. I want to just be very clear. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure I'm clear. Who's the building committee? officially and who's the attend, in, who's on that list. That's it.
De facto, we have a building committee. De jure is a question, but de facto, we do.
Yeah.
So, and we're operating on that basis. And this needs to be discussed later. It can be, but not at this meeting.
Does that answer your question?
Unless someone starts throwing something.
So I have no choice, right?
Okay, next item is the superintendent evaluation. Let me propose something, just as a way to move things along. The last time we did this, the superintendent assumed that her goals were the board goals. So is that the way that worked? Did we have?
I had some personal goals and then I also aligned some of my goals to the
Right,
board goals. as
okay,
well.
that's what I'm thinking of then. Now, do you have personal goals you would like to present to us at some point in this process, or?
Yeah, that's normally,
Okay.
I don't have to, but that makes sense that I can share my goals for the year.
So here's what let's do. Last year, Sue gave us the things she had done that fit these categories, and that list was nuclear. Things that we wouldn't have thought of. In the year before that, we had gone through and board members had checked the numbers, and that didn't work at all. Just because people were looking at different parts of the elephant. The trunk is one thing, the feet are another thing, an elephant, no, it's that. So when Sue gave us that list, it was gorgeous. So if we could ask you, if it works for next month, if it doesn't, believe me, we're not gonna, it's your evaluation.
Sure.
So, but if for next month, you could have that same list you did and goals.
Mhm.
Any reason not to do that?
Just which list are you referencing?
You got this.
Every one of these has
I hope you got it.
criteria
Yeah.
that has to be met.
Got it.
This is her evaluation.
Yeah, no, I remember this form. I
Yeah.
just, I thought he was switching.
No, I think that's,
That sound good?
Yeah.
That should move us
Absolutely.
along and then not make us talk about it more tonight. And that's, works for you, doesn't it, Sue?
Yes, thank
Works for you? Thank you. Okay, then, we are. to the
John,
next
can you
page of
just
the
draw poll though on that other item to see if this committee wants to get a legal opinion on this? Just because that was requested, just so that I know whether we're bringing that to the full board or not.
Committee is Sue Cathy.
Right.
On
Legal
what?
opinion or not?
let's draw a poll on the Sue's evaluation.
I asked for
A legal opinion on the.
I had
Oh,
asked for one
building
because.
committee.
Oh, there was
anything out
Going
there.
I
right
didn't
to
know
the Board of
that.
Ed?
Okay.
You mean to the building committee structure?
Yeah.
No.
So
No,
even if I wanted, it's 2-1, so no legal opinion. Moving on. System-wide focus areas, attendance, engaging, differentiated instruction, targeting student needs, community outreach, student parent, and community engagement. Anything to report there? Any
Nothing new. You got to hear that from the.
attendance plan?
Yeah, and from the middle school lens, and then we are continuing to work with LEAP on that whole home visiting piece and attendance, which we really think is a great outreach that really we'll see it pan out so that we've got some great opportunities. We have 65 people who have been trained, which is really excellent. And we are very excited that our translators are doing a lot of that home visiting, so that's paying off as well. So it's nice to have that translation and that Spanish speaking connection for our families, to bring them in as well.
We're looking forward to seeing how that works.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Delegated School Improvement Committee Board Goals, shared with the full board, monitor implementation of district strategic plan and integration into the city strategic plan once that plan is developed. City doesn't have a plan yet. In all fairness to the city, they were working on that. That's something else that blew up at COVID time, and there have been other things that have stopped us from being able to do that. So it's not like it's anyone's fault, but we can't have much to say about that. Monitor and support middle school, high school building committee, allocate resources, development, implementation pathways. That was Monday night. That went on forever. Oversee, not a lot of wasted time, but it was a lot of time. Oversee and support whatever is necessary to deal with the educational impact affects prolonged distance learning. Anything new there? I mean, we heard Brian talk about the results, the test results and everything. Anything?
Well, and I think you heard a little bit from Kelly Gallulo also, right, about the
Kelly
other
Gallulo.
end of it, and
When I sat down with her after the meeting, there was
Yeah.
a lot of.
yeah, there are some challenges for sure, and I think we spoke about this at a recent meeting also, and I think Brian also alluded to it, you know, the last normal school year a seventh grade student has was when they were in fourth grade. So we're, you know, sort of realizing the effects of that. I think that the behavioral aspect of it is greater even than the academic
Heard about that. from the
loss, truly.
administrators.
So we're trying to address those needs in order to, and we talked about this the other day, right? We're trying to address those needs because they're basic needs. And, you know, and Laura is on and she's certainly talked with you about this as well. If we don't get that under control, we're kind of just circling the drain, you know? So, yeah, and, you know, and I'm sure as you all must do, I read everything I can get my hands on about what districts across the state and nation are experiencing. And it's very similar, you know, I mean, this is truly probably the first time in my life that I really understand misery loves company. Right? It's- yeah, I mean, we will come out on the other end of this because everybody's working so hard. But it's painful. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Website, Altice, social media updates. Ally, you're up.
So, last 28 days, 137 people, new people viewed our Facebook page. 8 new people liked our Facebook page. Posts have reached 1,556 people. There were 288 types of engagement, like share, comment, and highlight. 788 people watched the news clip. I watched the video clip from the 2Gen ESL Family Literacy Program that Donna Labby and Jenny Garcia had in place. So it's really nice.
Great.
And is this just, I don't know, sorry, no. This is for like the Facebook page, that's just the Torrington Public Schools Facebook page,
Correct,
not
yes.
like the accumulation of
Right,
all the different, okay, got it, thank you.
Other questions for Ally?
Just we've had a request if there's any way that the sporting events, specifically football, could be streamed to our thing.
So there's a
Not
license.
tonight, but maybe another we can have. Just
I can answer that. So we have an agreement with NFHS, and they are live streaming on a per pay platform through NFHS.
Oh,
The
what,
only-
NFHS?
NFHS network. And I think it's only like a couple of dollars per season. It's not that expensive.
Oh.
I'll send out the link of where, but I think one thing we could do is find a way to, we do have the rights to rebroadcast on channel 22.
Okay.
But we cannot restream the actual event because it is streamed through NFHS.
Other questions? Comments? Thank you, Ally. And tag update. Laura, you've been sitting there all night through 2 long meetings. Well, 1 short meeting and 1 long meeting. Go ahead.
Yep, just real quick, we have received the COGAP group assessment, and Andrew is working out the schedule for when it will be given to our 4th and 5th graders during their school day, you know, within their classroom. He's also developing a letter which will be going home to the parents explaining why the assessment is being given and what the what the results of that will be used for. So he's hopeful that by the end of October, we will have all of the assessment done, and then we'll be able to review teacher recommendations and other scores and other parts of the criteria to see who's eligible for the pilot program.
Thank you. Questions for Laura? Moving along, making some progress there. Thank you. Alliance update.
So we have to submit our data by the end of this week. So next month, we will have an update there to review our discipline and our attendance data, as well as our instructional progress. So share that next month.
Reports, next one. Questions about the Alliance report? Okay, we are there. Topic for future meetings. Social promotion, homogeneous versus heterogeneous grouping, Washington field trip. We do have to talk about that. That's going to be next month. Cell phone policy, uniforms, facilities realignment. We should start talking about that too. And the way Ally is going to deal with the documents. Anything else?
I'm not in this committee, so I could have been missing it, but the board goal related to like the pathways, just based on Monday's meeting, it seemed like there was still like, I don't know, maybe education either for the full board or, you know, really understanding what those pathways are, what we, like the classes we currently have, like the resources we need if we're going to kind of go after all of those pathways. Where does that discussion happen, kind of like, I guess, in a more meatier place? Or is that here and then should it become more of a focus, or am I just missing it because I'm not sick?
That's, you know what, that's a good point. Maybe now, I think, John, we've kind of been able to table this because we haven't had a lot of activity. But as we move forward, and I think you said originally when we added this to the subcommittee, as the building committee progressed and things progressed, then this would be more of a hot topic for.
The individual courses are approved by school improvement committee. Or did you interpret that to mean something besides that?
No, just maybe more of when would we start looking at it and understanding what do we have today versus what is being proposed for tomorrow? Is that something that we need to look at sooner than later? I guess.
We want it on the agenda, we put it on the agenda, you know, it's.
It just doesn't seem like there's
ours.
enough time in these meetings to give it the attention that it
I don't
needs.
think it's gonna require anything new, except maybe just a longer discussion about what we already have in front of us and have had in front of us a couple of times, but maybe people haven't had a chance to
Right,
ask
I
questions.
think the confusion for both of you is that a very in-depth presentation was made to the board back in, I don't know, a couple
Probably
years ago.
before you got.
Before
When
you
it started, when it all
Right.
started.
Right.
So maybe an update.
Yeah, and like if there's a.
Or just send it if it's a presentation. I don't want to put everybody through a long update that was already done. If there was a presentation out there that was done, if you could forward it, that would be, I don't know what you would want, Nikki, but that'd be fine with me if I could read it.
Like,
and then ask questions.
We'll still want to ask questions.
Yeah, and I guess
Right.
too, with the space that's been allocated, you know, we heard in Monday's meeting, Gary was, you know, talking about partnerships and machinery and all these things, like, where does that even start to have these conversations to happen? Are there things we need to support those pathways? Like, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of how to, I guess, put more, you know, bullets underneath each of those bigger pathways, other than just the class. Like, we're gonna need more teachers to support kind of these pathways. Do we have too many pathways? Too many, you know, I don't know.
Pathways next month.
Thanks.
Comments for the good of the order, Fiona? So, Nikki? Kathy?
Good.
Oh.
We're meeting just a little long, but I think it was because of.
Ellen's meeting was
Andrew?
Dear for a great meeting and kudos to the middle school team.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, middle school team.
I want to applaud the middle school team and teachers out in cyberspace. They are living school improvement on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely.
Kim?
Good meeting, good presentation for middle school. It was great.
So,
Nice job to TMS. Yep.
so
Many thanks to TMS and also to Kelly, and I'm glad you got to visit Torrington. It's exciting to be back at a school and doing business.
yeah, it was good. Maureen?
Middle school put a lot of work into that presentation, and I think they're gonna see some good results.
That was, Ally?
Great meeting, and I'm looking forward to next one.
Laura?
Just thanks for all your efforts. I know you all work really hard, put in a lot of time.
Hey, Gary, you still out there? I saw you were on before. Gary's gone, okay. And for me, just thank you as always to everyone who puts time into coming to these meetings and preparing things for these meetings and presenting at these meetings and just putting up with the time commitment too. I just appreciate all of it when we all show up. Thank you very much. And next meeting is November 3rd at Vogel Wetmore. And after that, we meet at Forbes School and then back at Midgeon Avenue. But next month, Ally's plan, pathways discussion, Washington field trip, facilities realignment. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in